I'm really excited for this next leg because it's here in my home in the UK. So for the first time in the last 15 hours, I'm on the same time zone. So welcome to everyone that's joining us from all over the world, and welcome to those of you that are here in the UK as well. And we've got some incredible subjects that we're going to talk about: energized workplaces, internal communications, lessons from advertising, HR priorities for 2021, your professional and your own personal growth, and much, much more. If you did miss any of the speakers and you're really keen to hear from them, we will have all of this available on demand. We will be blogging content and sharing it all with our Inspira community. Speaking of community, if you'd like to get involved, if you'd like to ask any questions to our speakers, then if you're watching on YouTube, just here, you'll see there's a section where you can put comments and you can ask questions. And we are also encouraging the conversation to and continue on Slack. So during the networking breaks, we've had people sharing what they're learning, sharing where they are, what they're up to, and that community of inspirers will continue after. So if you're watching this on YouTube, then we'll pop the link to the Slack group right here. If you're watching it live on our website, we'll pop the link to the Slack group right here. So do join that Slack group, do ask questions, and do get involved with our speakers as well. That would be great. We did have a really, really nice studio booked for today. For those of you that don't know, the UK are back in lockdown. So you get to see the top floor of my house. If you do hear any noises, I do have twin babies and a 4-year-old at home. I couldn't kick them out. If anyone's in the UK, we're in a storm today. So if you do hear any baby sounds or anything, I promise you it's not you. It's coming from this house. And probably another disclaimer is that Stefan, the linchpin of our team, the guy that does everything in the background for us, is really sadly unwell. We really do wish you well, Stefan. I hope we're doing you proud, but that does mean that you've got me and some other members of our team running things in the background from a technological perspective. So we've not had any bleepers so far, but I can't guarantee that won't happen. So just to recap, if you want to watch anything on demand, we will make it available. Comments here or here, join the Slack group. Any baby sounds, I promise it's not you. So on to our first speaker. Can't really think of a better speaker to kick off the first leg, so no pressure there. Our next speaker, his mission is to see more people flourish through their work, and he really wants to help shift organizations and for a force for social good. I am really delighted to introduce this guy. His reputation precedes him. He's very, very well known. His name is Perry Timms. He's the founder and chief energy officer of PTHR. And I don't believe this only because he doesn't look old enough, but he's got over 30 years of experience in people, learning, technology, organizational change and transformation. And he's here to talk to us about designing organizations where people flourish. So Perry, are you there?
Hello there, Ruth. I am. Thank you very much for the intro. Yes, I'm 53 years young, so yeah, I've got those 30 years under my belt.
Well, you look great. You look great
Thank
for it, Perry. So I will hand over to you, Perry. I think you want to share some slides with our community today, and then I'll pop back in whenever you ask me to, really.
Thank you. Okay. Absolutely. So yeah, for me, what a feat. Ruth, Matt, team, you've done amazingly well so far, so thanks for that. Also, I'd like to call out the sort of diverse range of speakers that you've got here. It's really nice to see that you've got a really good demographic and different kind of vantage points, I guess, for people, so thanks for that. So yeah, it's a big day. It's a big day in all sorts of respects, not only for the Inspirathon, but I guess there are things happening in the political world that we're all watching very keenly. So as the great Dr. Martin Luther King once said, we've always got hope. So let's hang on to that. My job today is to inspire and also to be on time, because I'm followed by some terrific speakers like Rachel, Jenny, Charlotte and more. So it's a real pleasure to kick off this UK sort of EMEA leg. So I am going to go into share screen and get some slides up for you. so that I can talk you through what it is I believe helps us create more inspiring workplaces, but designing them so that people flourish. If you need to get in touch with me, website and Twitter feed is down there. I'm also on Twitter at Perry Timms, LinkedIn, etc. I'm not difficult to find, as Ruth said. So yeah, great to be part of this massive event. And this is the concept: designing organizations where people flourish, not just where they transact or exist or comply. Unleashing the full potential of human endeavour. I wrote a book that was published in August 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, called The Energized Workplace. And of course, the place of work now isn't a thing we always go to. It's places like Ruth's top floor. So for those of you at home, hope you're doing well. For those of you that are still out there keeping the world moving, thanks very much for all that you're doing. So that's the concept I'm going to talk about today. Tiny bit about us. As Ruth says, we are very sort of socially oriented and sort of activists, I guess, for creating better business for a better world. And you'll see why when I talk through some of the things today, why I think that's really compelling for us all to think about work and business as a force for good. So the small team, 9 of us across different time zones ourselves, we want to help transform teams and the way they operate to help people flourish in their work. So that's what we do as a business. We're very proud to have some affiliations and some accreditations under our belt. One of the things we're most excited about, hopefully fingers crossed, is that we're pending our B Corporation certification. So hopefully that comes good, and then we can be part of a community that helps business build that sort of better future by doing good. The kind of work we do, people-powered change, lots of agile, autonomous working, design and systems thinking if you're into that. But looking at this whole concept of regenerative energy in the workplace, I think we've all seen it. Zoom fatigue is a thing, but we've all seen how depleted we are. When we go into work with a full tank, by the time we're finished, it's pretty much spent. There's something about work that I like to think we can regenerate that during the process, so we don't just go home and collapse in a heap or retire from the workspace in a heap. Organization design and conscious businesses really interest me. So if you want to know more about that, I'm always happy to talk to you. But I thought I'd start with a little bit of fun because I never want to be one of those people who has a quote of something they said next to their own picture made into an internet meme. So honestly, that's a parody. But really, there is a kind of link to what I wanted to talk about today because I've already been quoted on it. I wrote a piece for the lovely people over at HR Zone. If you don't follow the work of Becky and the team at SIF Media under HR Zone, there's lots of really nice content they're putting together. Recently, they published their Cultural Pioneers, some amazing stories of companies and people within them who've looked after each other, who've challenged orthodoxies, who've seen us through the pandemic. So go check out the Cultural Pioneers that's been published by HR Zone. But Becky asked me to put my predictions to the test, really. I did it last year as well. And of course, I didn't predict a pandemic, but I did predict that we'd be working harder, we would need more agility, and then we'd have to focus on things like well-being and how we were. And that kind of came true, but in bizarre circumstances. This year, I'm predicting that we need to continue with that agile approach to work, but we need a lot more intelligence-led thinking and doing. And we need to stop talking about hierarchical, cascading board decisions. We need to think more mission control. We need more responsive leadership and inclusion on decision making and pathways that may only see us through the next week or month, but we need some more of that clarity, surety, and direction of travel. So these are the 3 things I am going to talk to you about today, amongst some other factors that I think help deliver those propositions to make the workplace that flourishing environment. And I want to start with this one, a really easy word to say. And of course, there is the sort of the phrase that said, you know, trust arrives on foot and kind of leaves on horseback. It's the kind of thing, it takes ages to build up trust, but it can be eroded with one action and one kind of sentence even that stops people feeling trusted or feeling like they're part of a trusted environment. But rather than just use the buzzword element to it, I wanted to go into some of the recent research that's been published by the Edelman Trust Barometer. If you've never seen the Edelman Trust Barometer, I recommend you do. Every year, something like 30 to 40,000 people are surveyed across several hundred countries around the state of trust they have with each other, with organizations for profit, with government, the media, and with non-profit, non-governmental organizations. Those are the kind of frames of reference, really. And as we can see from 2020 to 21, things haven't exactly got better. So if we look at government and if we look at media, they are seen as less competent and unethical. We are not in a state of trust with our elected officials and with those people who are narrating, commenting and sharing the views through the media outlets. Considered to be more ethical but still struggling with competence are the non-governmentals, the charities, the non-profits. And so if we look across, business as a reasonably competent and reasonably ethical force is about the only thing we seem to trust. Some of that, I think, has come through the responses to the pandemic, where we've seen organisations who have stood firm, have looked after people, and they've been described as the saints. The Guardian published an article last year about saints and sinners. Sinners are those who say, no, you will come to work. I don't care if you don't feel safe. I'm not going to look after you any more than I already have. So I think there's really something profound in how businesses are standing in the space of certainty, sanctuary, safety, trust, and belief, and helping people cope with an extraordinary amount of pressure, tension, and anxiety. So that reflects that. And in it was some questions specifically about businesses being expected to fill the void left by government. And here where we can see that people do want to see CEOs stepping in to fix problems that governments don't, to not wait for governmental imposition and change things, and to hold themselves accountable, not just to the board of directors, but to the public writ large. So these are some pretty profound things. So I think in order to create a flourishing workplace environment, we've got to take these things into account. It is perhaps the only place at times, either virtually or in reality, where we feel safe and trusted. And here's a few examples. When we saw the pandemic response, people like Brewdog said, we're going to stop brewing alcohol, but we're going to use some of our capabilities to create sanitizer to bolster supplies. And then in the same breath, the founder said, we're also going to plant a massive forest because we realize we're pillaging the Earth's assets. When it came to ventilators, people like GM, Ford, Tesla, and Rolls-Royce said, well, we'll stop producing cars and produce ventilators. I think it was possibly only some government inefficiencies that didn't take up that offer to create more capacity with things like ventilators. And of course, with Black Lives Matter, we saw some companies who went with the black dark square, but we also saw people like Ben & Jerry's put out a really strong statement that said, we've got to dismantle white supremacy, no sitting on the fence with them. So these are businesses and the people within them who are declaring an intent to do something beyond their profiteering. It leads me on to the next element that we need to think about a lot more. With trust also comes care, and with care, it also builds trust. And there's some really strong examples of organizations and people within them who show they care about their fellow humans, both in their employ and in their community and more widely. And so here's a really nice mission statement from a company that I've long admired ever since I first heard the CEO tell the story of his organization. We measure success by the way we touch the lives of people, not just employee, but people in a more broad sense, in communities, in their families and beyond. That company is manufacturing organization Barry Waymiller. It's a multi-billion dollar industry based in the US, but with a footprint across the world, who grow by acquisition, who are servicing the manufacturing and creative needs that we have. And there in the bottom corner is Bob Chapman, who I saw speak at a conference in 2016, completely blown away and moved by the ethos and the principles that he has in this organization. Effectively, they show their care by reminding people that their employees are not just a number on a job description. They are somebody's partner, daughter, son, cousin, nephew, neighbor, carer, whatever it might be. And he advocates this whole sense of wanting to send those people home so that they can be nice, kind, and appreciative of their family and their immediates around them. So Barry Waymiller is not a place where overwork happens. Barry Waymiller is a place where decisions about the future are taken collectively, where people feel the sense of family and belonging. So there are some terrific examples out there. And Bob's written a book called Everyone Matters, and it's worth checking out. Everybody Matters. The next bit I want to talk about is involvement. So we've got trust, we've got care, we've got involvement. If we're looked after and we believe that there's a trusted environment, we may want to have some say in how things are shaped and what happens and how our organization progresses through. So we need involvement. And so we have the concept of involvement here from Michelle, the CEO of Decathlon, again, a multi-global organization known for its sort of care and attention to the community, the environment and the people. And on a visit to Lille a few years ago, when I was at an event that Decathlon ran and I spoke at, I really saw and sensed just how connected people are, but also how involved they are in the future of the organization. And Michelle Labrea kicked off an enormous conversation within Decathlon saying, what would you like to do? What are you good at? And what do you want to develop? It sounds like a performance management conversation, but coming from the CEO, this is an invitation for people who work at Decathlon to shape the future, to be involved, to participate and change the dynamic of how an organization functions. That kind of involvement isn't tokenistic. It's what shapes companies in their direction. So I wanted to talk now about my 3 predictions, and rather than talk about Agile from either ING Bank or Spotify or those other organisations that we know to be Agile, I want to take you to the wilds of the northwest of England and the wonderful people at Salford City Council. So this is a team of people working in local government, high pressure, lots of work to do and demanding citizens who need terrific services, who I worked with in 2018 to create an agile sense of bringing their values to life and delivering great services to the people of Salford. So pride, passion, people and personal responsibility were their values, which just so happen to fit perfectly with the way agile projects can be put together. People who want to build something that makes a difference, people who've got the passion to solve a customer's problem, people who want to leave their badge at the door, and people who want to stand in accountable space for creating something that makes a difference to people. Within 6 months, we turned some stuttering digital agenda at Salford into a flagship program that won Digital Council of the Year. And this is an organization now that people want to go and say, how do you do the Salford way? We call it Magenta Magic. This is a company that's not just an organization that's not just embraced agile, it is agile. Their COVID-19 responses were to create a staff app to help with working from home and using new tools in under 48 hours, to deliver equipment that people needed to use to do their work in the communities within 48 hours, and to work with the Rugby League Club at the AJ Bell Stadium to set up a testing COVID centre, all in under 48 hours. These are people who lean in and make things happen because they bring their values to life through agile working. These are flourishing people. And then we've got an organization based in Michigan that I spent some time with and recently reconnected with online. They're a technology company. There are about 80 of them. They're engineers who build software, Menlo Innovations. Now, they're an intelligence-led organization because they have a number of different facets that really bring intelligence to life and help people make decisions and do great work. For a start, you will see at the bottom edge of that picture, 2 people sat round a computer. Now, they are not just casually checking each other's work. They're working together as a pair. They bring their joint intelligence to solving problems of a technological nature in that moment. They have regular stand-ups. All their work is published, as you can see, at the back of the room on a board. People can go and see what state pieces of work are at and can volunteer to help other pairs doing other work. But this is a team that's fueled by intelligence. And they have a small group of people in their organization called high-tech anthropologists. And they study the people who are going to use the technology in their normal day-to-day environment to make sure the technology is in flow and fits with how they need to operate and what they do. The example I really like about this is when they built an engine diagnostic system for the bus company in Michigan, and they noticed how engineers who are trying to fix the engines wear rubber gloves to keep them away from all the grease and grime. When they're using a touch screen system to get into the engine diagnostics, they have to take the gloves off to then have a sort of fingertip sensitive invoking of the program. So they changed it so that they could keep their grubby sort of gloves on, and it was pressure sensitive, not to the fingertip. So that made a massive difference in how efficient those engineers were. These are intelligence-led people who flourish through their work. They're also called the Joy Factory because their whole esprit de corps is they work with joy. And then this is another technology company, again in the US, a small one that I visited again a few years ago. They're called Geonetric, and they provide systems in healthcare. So this is technology that enables people to share patient records, access, and get online diagnostics and so on. Now, the reason I've picked on this company and put the mission control element to it is because this is the only corporate management team I've ever seen whose work, as in the things they have to work on as a management team and decide upon, is posted to a scrum board. It's a big whiteboard in the office that any of the team can walk up to and see what the chief exec, the chief operating officer, the chief product officer, or the chief marketing officer are all working on at any given time. They do have a rule as well that anything confidential is put in an envelope. It's not sealed, but it's in an envelope. And so they can maintain confidentiality that way. But this is where I think we've got this sense of not waiting for a cascaded board decision, but we feel like we're operating in some NASA-like mission control where we're tuned in to key strategic decisions, to big corporate initiatives and tiny little decisions that can make a difference every day. I think having that kind of feel of connection to what the real agenda is at the highest level and the most minute detail gives us a sense of being in control of our mission. And I think that helps people flourish in their workplace. Now, this is all kind of backed up a bit by some recent articles published in Harvard Business Review. So these are some extractions from an HBR article about agile leadership. And in it, it talks about the current status, static, almost like fixed ways of operating. And then this opposite, which is what we've seen in the pandemic, some chaotic, unhinged and perhaps completely random ways of working. In it, it says there's a sliding scale that we can put into the whole leadership dynamic where we can be agile, so we can lean towards the more fluid, but we don't have to completely detach from that which is stabilizing, is very governance friendly, helps us manage risk. So I think we're seeing this all the time now in how we both respond to the pandemic and how we come through the complexities of things like hybrid working. Without that approach, I think we've got a challenge on our hands for leaders to make the decisions that include and involve us, build trust and show care. So I think this is where we've got now the chance to have a mixing desk to how we operate as leaders. And it's nice to see them embrace things like individuals and engagement and working solutions rather than just documenting what's going to happen. I think we need as much action as we do sort of documents. So I think there's something really nice coming through in the leadership realm, which helps, I think, create a more flourishing experience for people at work. And of course, we're now faced with this huge spectre of choice. Once we're vaccinated and we're through a program where the pandemic is no longer our big anxiety, we've then got that kind of tension, I suppose, of what we like about home working, what we don't like about home working, how we reintegrate for people who have had no choice versus people who can. And Pew Center research quite recently picked on the fact that before the coronavirus outbreak, about 20% of us could work from home. But now there's over half of us who are saying, actually, I want to make that a massive feature of my working week. I've got used to exercise around me and being around for the family and taking the dog for a walk and all sorts of things that seem to be very difficult to fit in our previous commuting and place-based operation. Mixed with the fact that we miss our colleagues, we want to get together to do some spontaneous innovation and some planning and some real creative thinking. So I think we've got some real challenges to go forward in creating a flourishing workplace, even if that's not a physical entity. The workplace has now become wherever we are, and we need to make sure we're building those strong connections, keep the cultural vibe alive, but also fit with our newfound, I suppose, liberated living experience. And so what is an energized workplace? I think it's something where we talk about energy. We know it's precious. We value it. We regard it and we build it into our thinking. I think we've seen this come through a lot in COVID-19 responses. But it's also where the systems are very deliberate about how they're designed to take that into account. So if you're homeschooling and therefore you want to do that at the beginning of the day, and then the afternoon is where you'll deal with your work-related aspects, and then that can be engineered, then let's make that design something that we can follow through on. And make sure we have this regenerative element to it so that we're not just taxed by working, we are enhanced by things we can build to our working day so that we can individually manage our energy, not our time. That, I think, is the crucial factor, managing the flow of you rather than the ticking of the clock. And so I've kind of articulated that in the book, and people say, well, what does it look like? And so this is what I think the diagrammatic representation perhaps of an energized workplace may look like, with things like the leadership team still in their roles, doing their sort of outward facing intelligence gathering and sort of deduction. And then inside it, some specialist functions that really help us out, because they're really vacuum packed and they really are specialists in financial modeling and our business intelligence. But then all the rest of the workforce in these fluid circles of people who are solving problems, who are tackling the issues of the day, but working strategically and really well aligned to have this flourishing sense of accomplishment, doing things, making a difference, getting a result, showing impact, creating value. All those things need to come into the day pretty much every day. And this might be the way we can engineer it. So Agile's the norm for it. Autonomy, alignment, and inclusion. Absolutely feels like that's the way to go. And that we design work more about energy, rhythm, and a balance. I think we've got to start looking at that when we talk about well-being and exhaustion and Zoom fatigue and this crammed diary. Got to start thinking, how can we look after ourselves? How can we create a system where our energy flow is optimized? And if we want to start looking at some stimulants, these are some of the things I think give us a spark. When we've got good relationships with people, we trust them, they look out for us, we look out for them, it's a lift. If we can spark something innovative, it gives us a rush of some kind of stimulation and energy that we can start to create something that helps us solve a problem. We might discover something new and research and get excited about that. Variety, the kind of promise of the trade between us and the team. I think all of these things in different ways are things we can focus on every day and say, if I'm not really touching any of these elements, am I really starting to spark my energy back into being? Because if not, I probably need to start thinking about how I can do that, and whether that's connecting to the purpose, whether that's understanding your interplay between you and the system. This is a cognitively aware, optional way of building your day into being more energized. So that's it. Trust plus care plus involvement equals an environment where people can flourish. And then agile approaches multiplied by an intelligence-led approach to what we're doing, and very nicely aligned and sense of accomplishment, and a mission control that can respond to the needs of now plus the long-term trajectory, means we can live the promise of Barry Waymiller's measuring success by the way we touch the lives of people. And I'd like to think of more organizations who would build that into their strategy, touch the lives of their own people. A little bit of philosophy. Howard Thurman says, don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and go and do that, because what the world needs is more people who've come alive. No greater energy source than the sense that you're really alive in what you're doing. So heed the words of Howard's very wise philosophy there. There's the team. You can find us online. We're not difficult to locate. And I'll stop there and go back to Ruth and the team. I think I managed to bring it on time, Ruth.
Perry, that was just spot on. Like you rehearsed it.
Yeah, a little bit.
I mean, phenomenal. Thank you so much for all that research, that sharing, the case studies, everything that you share is just, I'm sure, inspiring people, helping people to learn, and helping to create workplaces that people flourish.
Cool.
I want to ask a couple of questions,
of course you can.
And also make a few comments.
Yeah.
Touching the lives of people. I mean, that there's not even a mention of manufacturing. There's not even a mention of anything, right? Like we just want to make the world a better place. I touch the lives of people, and that's not just their own people. I think it's phenomenal, and I agree. If other organizations could find ways to, sounds cliche, but put their people first and weave the needs of their people first, I'm sure they'd start to see the similar results. I love the idea of a joy factory. Like, brilliant. You know, why not? And when you joy. And when you share the examples of the people that are working in that joy factory, if I said the word joy factory, the image you probably get in your head is quite different to what it is. So I think that's fantastic. And Geonetric, that was the name of the organization. There's been quite a few sessions today where we've talked about creating these psychologically safe workplaces and building humane cultures. It has come down to leadership being human, being open, admitting where they, don't know the answers or they don't know mistakes, not withholding information, just being humans, being normal people. whatever normal is. And I really like that. I really like that idea of this, the envelopes with that are not sealed, with confidential, but everything else on a board.
Yeah.
I've worked many places where the leaders are all huddled in meeting rooms all day long. Oh gosh, can't go in there. Or even on a separate floor, even with a secretary maybe blockading those meeting rooms. Yeah. And you feel so far removed from the end goal, strategy, and even the purpose of the organization, because all you get is it written on a wall, rather than you feeling it and from your leaders. So I really like that. I love your org chart. I love it. Or your idea of how we made to design these workplaces. Now, there's an amazing company that I love and that I follow. They're based in the UK. They're a very fast-growing accountancy firm. Probably not the first place you think of when you think of these flourishing cultures. And they're called Cooper Parry. You've probably heard of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've heard.
They are incredible, incredibly open, incredible workplace. Yeah. And what their CEO Aid said to me a couple of years ago was, many people have tried to copy us because we have such a great culture here, and it just doesn't work. And I think what's quite interesting, you've shared some incredible case studies, some incredible advice and research with people, but it can seem overwhelming for some people. Maybe they are a small organization, or they realize that they want to change or need to change their culture, but they really don't know where to start, and might start by copying what someone else has done. And everything that you've shared, if that does seem overwhelming for a leader, HR professional, or anyone that's watching right now, what's your advice on where to start?
I think the indicators will probably be there when you talk to people about what's important to them. So again, it comes back to that involvement thing, I guess. But in order to do that, people have got to feel that it's safe. Oh, can you not? How's that? Any better? Any better? No? Hang on. Right.
I can. I'm just going to check everyone else can.
Yeah? Are we good?
It's just me. I've just been told it's just me. Everyone else can hear you, Terry. It's just me. I can hear you again.
So if I go back to the involvement thing, I think it starts there. And but in order to do that, people have to know that people care and it's trusted as an environment. So I think we do need a few people to have an Spartacus moment where the top team or CEO will say, I need some people to tell me what really matters to them so that we can start working on things. We've heard lots of examples of brilliant things, but we don't know what's right for us. And then involve people who can then say, well, actually, we do need a little bit more openness, or we do need a little bit more borders or boundaries or clarity or whatever it might be. And I think we build it up from there. So I think we stop guessing what it's going to be good for. And so if we think, let's all be agile and start doing that. And some people are like, that doesn't solve our problems though. So I think that's where we can get that co-creation thing going, and small scale experiments. So say to people, look, we don't know whether the whole company want to work in this flexible way or whatever it might be, but let's find some people who do, experiment, learn, reveal, and then start thinking, how does that apply in other areas? So I think we need this aggregation. I think we need this evidence base. Because some people might need some persuading, some people will just be very heart-led and go for it. But to try and do it in a boardroom, I think is just daft. I think it just has to come out. It has to be in the wild. People have to be able to play with it, get their hands on it, and understand what it means. And if you're in a big company, that might seem really difficult. But a big company is made up of lots of little cells of small units of people. Start with them.
Yeah, that's absolutely fantastic. If anything, actually, this year, will coat the pandemic. It sent everyone out into the wild, right? Like it wasn't a decision made in a boardroom. Like leaders didn't have any choice in it. It sent everyone out into the wild, and look what happened. Some great things have come from it. Some devastating things, some great things have come from it.
Some of the amazing stories I've heard from companies are where leaders actually went, I actually don't know what to do here, people, so you're going to have to help me. And it was so refreshing because people went, oh, blimey, we can do something here that has significance. And so whether that was forced or not, I think it creates a precedent now where people are like, no, I don't want that to go just because we're stable. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Perry. I'm just going to quickly check that there's not any pressing questions that everyone's asking for on Slack. No one's got any pressing questions. We've put a link to your website here in the comments.
Thank you.
Right on YouTube. We will follow this up. We'll follow it up with a blog, more content. And if you want to hear more from Perry, get in touch with him or contact me and we'll put you in touch. Perry, thank you so much.
Thank you, Ruth.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, good luck for the rest of the day.
Yeah, thank you.